about it, and I recently came to know that that same plugins and workflow activities concept will be available in FinOps sooner or later. So those are the first thing that I will cover up. Then I will be covering up around how the new low code, no code, there is a difference between what the power plugins give you, workflow activity gives you, and what the power you have for a specific MS Flow workflows on all those stuff. So, and with the end, obviously not in depth, but obviously Azure function as well, what's the difference I feel, and I have did my analysis around it. So it's again the same plugin versus all the stuff. So starting off, my this is a brief intro about myself, and let me start the presentation. Just a second, sorry. Yep. So I've been working in CRM Dynamics specifically for past 11 years now. My core expertise areas are no doubt CRM, and I've been working in CRM. When I started back in CRM, at that time it was also a low code scenario, because when you go in a product development, the coding compared to the Java or .NET based framework development, it's pretty low. But now things are more towards low code, more towards designing things and stuff on a basis, on a quick basis, and I will definitely demonstrate as well, when we progress this. So this is a brief introduction about myself. I governed good experience around CRM Dynamics, CRM marketing service module, did multiple integrations with big clients, top IT clients included, and this my social presence is available on LinkedIn and Twitter. And if anyone wants to reach me out, and I would love to hear, in case something in during this session is something you can add to my knowledge and I can add to your knowledge, please go ahead and tag me to it, and we can have a discussion around it. So this is the topic that was be talking about, like what does these individual things means. And we are right now in an automation sort of a war, I will say. Like we mostly hear that MS Flow is the low code and it should be used everywhere. The Power Automate can handle everything, and that and this and that also. But do they have, but can we for a moment ignore the fact that plugins or custom API workflow activity and Azure functions should be there, or they are there for some reason, or what is it, right? Because all these are there for some sort of a performing automation planning around it, right? Now, if I talk about plugins to start off, the plugins are one of the old guard, and as I mentioned, old guard is a term that I mostly use, is because plugins, when this what I say power platform came in, right? It's more or less a lot of things that are available right now on Power Platform are more or less already were available in CRM and SharePoint. A lot of those concepts are being moved and merged, and more are enhanced to be more user friendly and more easy to use. So what these plugins used to offer was traditional C# code was there. There were some sort of concepts of OOP and all a little bit on, I won't say that adapt much, but yeah, there were a lot of things we can do, comparison tools. Again, this was a coding flavor we had. But now what those coding flavor is I would not say that it's going away. There is a need here. Why I would say that plugins and workflow activities are required, because as I said, in FinOps I read and I heard in a couple of sessions recently that we will be soon hearing plugins and workflow activities there, because there when we talk about no code, low code, there is always a limit there. Like you will have some challenges to use that. And I will demonstrate right now in during some with some codes as well, and there's some challenges that I have via some coding, that compared to plugins, if I want to consume a web API, okay, it's much more gets complex when the web API is we have multiple arrays or multiple links to it. Then the consumption of that particular API does becomes difficult. So having said that, what plugins give us the powers is there is no additional execution limit. When we go into Power Platform and you talk about Power App, Power Automate, or MS Flow, or you talk about Azure function, there is always a cap there. There is a cap there that this is the limit you can execute. This is the times you have to execute, 500 times per user. This in plugins and workflow key, there is no limit in that. So does it mean that okay, it doesn't have its own weakness? Yeah, it have its weakness. The biggest weakness of a plugin is now it's 2 minutes of the time frame that we need to complete the execution. Okay, by execution I mean, for example, I'm sending out a request to a particular API, and I'm getting, or I'm trying to parse some data, like big data. I cannot do that anymore via plugin. If you ask me why, because traditionally when on-premise CRM was there, yes, these things were doable because we had a lot of server control at our hand, infrastructure control at our hand. But now when we talk about the cloud, because cloud have a limited or a shared source resources in a tenant-based concept exists, tenant-based. So we cannot increase this execution beyond 2 minutes. We have to compete, and this is the biggest cap that I feel is a limitation that come into plugins. And obviously it requires coding expert. I'm not against citizen development here. I'm saying that obviously when it comes to bringing on new people or new functional techno functional sort of a people on to be tag along us, this will require them to learn some coding mechanism, and have to spend some understanding on how to do that. Similarly, the scheduling option is not available in plugins. Similarly, the web service invoking, as I said, I will take an example of web service consumption, how it can be done. And this is the biggest limitation here, that when you think about C# code, you think that yeah, web services will be like adding another reference to it, and I will just demonstrate shortly. That is not the case. It's not just adding another reference. It will not be added. Why? Because in CRM, the plugins are always executed in sandbox mode. So having said that, I just stopped my screen, and I will be moving towards the coding area just to show you, and hopefully let me know if you can see that. Now, this is a particular typical plugin code, right? And the easiest way to consume an API, sorry, I'm just trying, is to add as a reference. That's the simplest thing I can think of. When I'm developing any .NET code, or when I'm developing any sort of a plugin, I can definitely add these references easily. Now, add a service reference means here, if I try to add any, this we have the option, but if we add it as well, unfortunately, the plugin will never execute that. Okay, now when I say plugin will never execute that, because plugins are registered when it comes to CRM in sandbox mode, they have a limited execution capacity that they can run on. Now, what the problem will come here, that the web services will not be consumed. You cannot make an external API calls or something like that. So to how to do that, then here comes the code that we have to perform. Okay, we have to create sort of a functional or encapsulation within our code, and you can see right now that that will be used to call this web service output. This is a working code that will get a web service response, and we will just call any web service that we want. We'll just declare the URL, and this is output parameter, and we will get a response around it that this web services is invoked, and we have to render all this. So again, this requires extensive coding. Even if I go again right now, to code it, I will have to do some sort of a maybe reusability of some code, and also adding more code to it when the complex scenarios come. So again, the point is that this requires a lot of coding expertise to be done. And if you the challenge then again comes in, that consuming a web service, if still in CRM right now we are moved towards Power Platform, we still have not a direct way to do that. So it have its own challenge. Okay. Similarly, the other challenge on limitation that we have in plugin is using a DLL reference. Now, thinking from a developer perspective, DLL reference addition is pretty easy. But when it comes to CRM, you have to use the in traditional CRM on premise, which is like the infra, on your local servers that was used to be deployed, you had the option to use, ilmerge and all that stuff, but now not on online as well. So there is like a limitation here that, so if you say to me that, can I use plugin for every case that I have, every solution that I have? I would say no. We as designers or as technical people or technical consultants, we have to know. And the main, and again, this is the main point of this whole session, that I need to tell everyone that that this whole case cannot be all handled by a single thing. You cannot say that Power Automate is the solution for everything. It will address all the solution. No, that's why we have Azure function in place. If you say that a plugin is the solution for everything, they are being there when we started CRM Dynamics. They not started, sorry, 2011 onward, but they are there, pretty old. But if you say that no, this is not possible. So keeping these perspectives in mind, this show us that there is an upper limit to the tools that we have. And that's why I said the automate tools available in the ecosystems have their own limitation and have their own um, you know upper threshold limits, you can say, like just like the execution limit. And similarly, so similarly, I'll be moving towards the next point on my slide, that is to discuss the, just a second, let me open the comparison. That this is one comparison, and now the next point of the the next automation tool that we have is MS Flow or Power Automate. Now MS Flow and Power Automate, I would we interchangeably use each it. There is a small difference that MS Flow is like the default one, and I feel that all the workflow activity and in CRM and this workflow activity, I'm making a sort of a call here that this will be depreciated as well, this all these plugins and workflow activities. So we have to think again that we have to find other alternatives as well in future days. And I feel in next coming months or so, or maybe in an year or so, just like we saw that JavaScript depreciation functions and all that stuff come in, we are expecting the same to be done in next couple of weeks for MS Flow as well. So sorry, for plugins as well. MS Flows are relatively new; they will be here for long. So again, now coming to MS Flow, Power Automate, the major difference is again that in Power Automate you have the connectors available, you have the prepaid connectors available. That's, and also some execution limit, more execution option. But if I say they are the low code areas, the newcomers, the low code area, MS Flow and Power Automate, like they have the same sort of a layout and designing and similar limitation. Yeah, obviously Power Automate you can say is paid one, so it gives you more sort of a freedom to create connectors with the Salesforce, the external connectors part, SQL, Oracle, and create any sort of any sort of an automation. Yeah, they give it to you the low code no code way. But unfortunately, they have their own limitation now, and I will demonstrate right now how that limitation comes. Again, the same example, consuming an API. That's my case study right now, to take an API and how I can. This consumption is pretty much easy if the API is straightforward. There's no complex API response we are getting. If it's straightforward, just getting the contact, and I will demonstrate which the fields and all those stuff, then okay, yeah, it can be done. But when the implementation gets complex, we have to get multiple data, we have to get a huge data chunk, then this MS Flow and Power Automate will also start failing it out. So as you can see on the left side, the powers are straightforward, that it's have pre-built lot of common automation tools available. You can check it from Flow Gallery and just quickly use that and move ahead. That's the the, what do you call, the charming thing of it. You feel that it have enormous power because of the available. Indeed it have, there's no question on that. But does that enormous power answers all your question? I would say no. Maybe I'm making a big statement here, but this is my feeling, and I will definitely try to prove it as well with the limitation and demonstration shortly. Now, it have built-in connectors. It's easy to connect to SharePoint. It is easy to connect to any other Salesforce, anyone. There are endless connectors available. Even I didn't explore all of them. I am as per my day-to-day activity, I get to a chance to explore. But there are even custom connectors are coming up now. People are creating their own connectors, so it's like it's a huge area that we have to. Similarly, you can trigger, automate things. The beauty of this all is you can automate things. The plugin had the limitation that you can never automate it. There is one way, there is an alternative way that you can design something around it. But if you say that, is there out of the box way to do it, out of the box way that the system provides it, plugins cannot be scheduled. Workflow can be scheduled, but that's again a not a good design, because it consumes your asynchronous activity and it will go into a waiting state, which is not again suggested. So now again, MS Flow have it. You can execute it for plan it, or schedule the running, just like normal task schedulers that we have in our Windows. We can do that. So it's same is the concept. But what is the weakness? I think it's a weakness. My thought that for the old guards who are more into coding, who like to do coding, they don't get that flavor or empowerment. And obviously it have we usually see the sneak code option. I think it's like uh, sort of a way of Microsoft, way of saying to us, you can see the code here. It's a code, just to satisfy us. But monetary challenges are there. It have a limitation. It have some upper threshold. You can never say that you can execute on a particular plan. You can do everything. That's the biggest challenge. And I will show you messaging, troubleshooting, and that's also a challenge. Just an example, try catch fails. The end result will always show you, if you try to implement try catch, it will always show you that your workflow worked fine, even though when you open the workflow, it will say error. In normal coding sense, when you are doing a code, if this execution is successful, you feel that, oh yeah, my work is fine. Okay, it does it perform the required action? No. But when you go there in MS Flow, you will see those errors coming in, and I will demonstrate that these errors, okay, these errors came, but I got a message that it's successful. So these kind of things, when complex things or third party integration tool. Right now, for example, there are premium connectors available for all the majors, competitors of Microsoft, and along with that, other technology, CRM technology. But what about any other third party connector? What about if I want to connect to the traditional skill? Yes, it is available. Is it straightforward? Is it simple? No, there are some challenges. So I'm switching my screen, and do let me know in case my screen is not visible. So this is a normal Power Automate flow that I created, just to give you an idea. And you can see over here, your success, and I will just show you first thing that I feel is the biggest challenge here is to address how your and by the way, when it comes to logging, and if I go back to my plugin code here, you see here there is easy logging, tracing enable. You can do anything in plugins. Your error logs can be of any time. So this show that plugin have more freedom and more error resolution possibilities. But when it comes to MS Flow, it's again complex. And just bear with me, and I'm going to my flow, and I will just show you yesterday, when I was trying to clear it, and you see all tests are succeeded. It's not possible. If you ask me, it's not possible. And I did that. I know why it's not possible, and I will show you how. Look, it's successful because I sort of created a try catch mechanism, but it's showing me that the run was successful. So run was not successful. There is an error here. Okay, so this is the problem. Now I have to sort of maybe configure some configuration around it, or some settings around it. Maybe an email shootout. Yeah, that can be done. So better mechanism can be handled. But right now, what I feel is that, okay, if you just follow the normal way of just monitoring the way that we are used to train, my plugin execution flows are available. I will see, okay, all the plugins are executing fine. Yeah, that's good. The workflows are executing fine. There is no pending workflow. Yeah, perfect. But if there is some pending workflow, I will go in and check. This is my a human behavior. But right now, when I see it, it's showing me that success. So that's the main first thing. Now, this is the try catch implementation, by the way. Again, this is not a direct way to implement try catch. Like in normal coding, we used to do it like try catch final. It's not. It's more of a scope box that we design. Again, I would say it's not the direct way to address the try catch, but this is a way to address it. Okay, but and as there is also, and you can saw that, you just saw that in my failure, that the try failed, but it didn't went into the catch, or it just went away with success. So this is first issue that I see, the challenge that I see when we are opting for MS Flow, is how to handle those errors. So again, my whole discussion is not around that, that okay, this is better or that is better, or no, this is not of use, or no, we don't need to use that. My overall perspective is that right now, if we are focused on MS platform or MS Power Automate, that's a good thing. We should be focused. It's a new thing, but we should also learn alternatives as well. Because when you're designing a system, when your customer comes to you, he won't ask you, okay, implement MS Flow to him. He doesn't know that. He have a problem in front of you. He will say that, what, I need this to be performed. Now, if we have a limited knowledge around just the MS Flow, or maybe considering me, because of my CRM background, I just have knowledge around CRM, then I'm not, I won't be doing the justice with the solution design. I'm not saying that I'm not doing a great work. I'm not doing the justice that's the solution. So I have to understand the overall ecosystem one way or another, as per my need, as per my region that I feel I should be expert. I should be a Power Apps expert. I should know all the alternative Power Portals I should be aware of. Should we use Power Portal? Should we use Power Apps? So this is sort of a thing that I want to create, that we don't keep the situation all eggs in our one basket. We should have alternatives as well. Now you see over here, this is a pretty straightforward workflow that that's doing nothing but rather just these are some initialized variable that I created, and what I did is made a web service call. This is a generic web service call, and I will just show you the response it have. It's a normal API that's available over the internet. I use that to get this information and response from. So it's pretty straightforward. There is no complexities in it. But the moment we will have more inner objects arranged, right? For example, consider the situation of a customer and customer's order. So if I try to show you, so for example, it will be simple, right? For example, if I want to order details, so order will be, this is order number 1 2 3 4 5. This is perfect, and it's like the amount, it's perfect, it's perfect, 100. Okay, now I need invoice. Okay, so if I have invoice detail, okay, now what will happen? Invoice will have its own object defined. So this is, and when these kind of a situation comes in, and it comes in when in Power Flow, things will get complex. It will not be as simpler that as we see here, and maybe in define, because we have to initialize them, you have to parse them, the JSON, and parse them to an array, then we can use it in any of our requests. I'm not saying that this is the way, but obviously this gets complex the moment we have more logics added to it. Okay, the more information will come in, the more problems or more challenges we will start facing. So if I just run it and quickly check it, it will work fine. Definitely will go. Okay, just a second, maybe it's logged out. Yeah, it worked fine, and my flow will work, and everything, but because it's a straightforward API. But will it work when I have complex? Yes, it will work that time as well, but it will have its own challenges then. It will have it will not be pretty straightforward. It will be all more complex, and we have to maybe parse more arrays around it. We have to parse, maybe fill more initialize more variables to get the other information. So that's what I'm trying to explain, that yes, this is a quick way, this is the future, this give us more option to work with and easily to do that. But if we are designing a solution, a quick solution, yes, we can use that. But if we want to see the scalability, we want to keep the scalability in mind, and enhance our solution to a next level, I would say we have to know all the available things or chunks at our disposal. And this is the reason, and my recent because I'm more interested in automations and all those tools. And recently what I did after learning Power Automate and learning all these little bit limitation, I started learning Azure. I like out of curiosity, not as an expert area, but out of curiosity, that how the Azure functions do it. And next slide will be more around Azure functions, and that it will have more challenges and information here, how we can handle those cases. So this is pretty much the Power Automate. I will just switch back to my screen. Just a second, please. Yep. Okay. So I'm there. Okay, so MSL, as I said, just to summarize, their weakness is just like the low code, no code is there, but it doesn't give you the flavor. And I was saying sorry, I'm switching my screen back. Is it's a funny thing for me, at least, when who used to do coding a lot, and when you go here, and you have just peak code. For me, it's a funny thing, that like to give people like, oh, no worries, we have code at the back, don't worry, it's not just drag and drop. If we are coding on behalf of you. So uh, the point is again that it have its flavor, it have its charm in it, but I feel that it have its limitation as well, and we should always learn the limitations as well of our tool to address the solutions of a customer more perfectly, more to the point, instead of just blindly giving everything on the low code and no code area and just relying that it will resolve everything. I feel the industry is a lot big, and we will have a lot of information that we have to know about. Okay, so coming back to the other point, and that's called the Azure function. Now, Azure function is the area that I'm still sort of getting used to it, understanding how to do it, and how this all this is my knowledge that I just learned from it, that it's a serverless computing, supports the standard languages. Again, there is a coding flavor to it, and it's pay for as function, not for idle function. In case, like, if you want to, for example, pay, and you know for in a sense that if my function is idle state, I won't pay for it. Okay, if the function is running, then I put it. This is a good thing, if you ask me, that's a good thing. But the problem is that do we have to have it in all case? No, it's not the case. It's sometimes different as well. Free time at the start of, I mean, you get some bundles around it, that 5,000 times execution is free or 10,000 is free, and debugging options is much more better compared, just like the plugin. It's a mixture of what I say plugin and the cloud computing powers. Okay, like uh, MS Flow is also like that, but it's more of our Power Automate. Like it's have more. Uh, if I can find the exact correct word around it, it's more cloud based with limited code usage. Now, execution plan is again the same. It's 5 to 10 compared to better than MS Flow. Like you have the limit to execute heavy functions, heavy code. You can use it to connect to Azure DBs, Azure Cosmo DB, and get the data from it. Or you can do archiving policy around it. Anything if you want to do it. It have a limit available that 5 to 10 minutes it can process a big chunk of data as well. Again, some coding expertise is required. It's pretty much not straightforward or standard when you say that, is it easy to learn? And as I said, I'm still learning that, and I'm trying to explore this more in detail, that how we can use that and how good it can be. And also it's good for enterprise level. Why I specifically mention enterprise level is my thought, because problem is that it when we grow the Azure function, that when there is always an exponential growth in Azure function, the usage increase, the costs increase. At the start we don't feel that, so we have to be sure that when we are suggesting a customer, we always keep the scalability in our mind, at the back of our mind, that this particular thing will increase or not. So going towards the Azure function real quick. Again, I'm just showing you a simple example of coding that I did. I was not able to run it, and but what we see here is it's a simple thing in which we are just contacting the CRM and getting all the contacts information. That's pretty much it. But again, you can see the trace log trace option available, the console write options available. It is pretty much more compared to the logging mechanism that is available for our MS Flow that I just demonstrated. When it was successful, even if I was failing, it was giving me success. Yes, error was coming inside. I'm not saying it's not showing me, and I have to go in individually, or maybe sort of a define any email notification that will be updated. And similarly, the tracing and logging is much better when it comes, just like plugin, it's much better here. Similarly, when it comes to the connectivity or the coding, is pretty much the same, just like the CRM plugin that we used to have. Now, along with that, this is again, as I said, I'm pretty also learning at the start stage. So this is the code that I developed, and I'm still trying to get it built and start connecting and getting the information. But just for knowledge purpose, it's something that I feel have the capability available. But again, we have a some thresholds around it, and I will be definitely in future, if I get a chance, I will write some blog around it as well. What the upper threshold exists for this Azure functions and F stuff. Okay, so Azure job. Now, Azure jobs and Azure functions are pretty much, I would say same, yeah, but they have their own, similarities, that they are more or less same serverless compute services. They support JavaScript functions. Web jobs are both trigger, can be scheduled. So sort of a, is my understanding to say, task scheduler and desktop services that we are used to it, because it can work on long running processes. It have more capability when it comes to running it out for longer runs. For example, I want to get the whole syncing of a database. I'm a banking, I hopefully we'll see bank on the cloud as well soon. They are the customer that really resist to come on the cloud because of the concerns. But if for them, when their processes are defined, they mostly have a core banking system where all the customer information resides, like their monetary information, their transactional information, that's something there, and they daily sync it out as well back to the system. So all those stuff, it's billions and millions of transactions that they have to sync back and forth. So for this Azure web job is something that I feel is the right fit for it, and or updating any sort of a bulk information, sending out a bulk information, so performing bulk actions. This is the best way to do it. So my thought is that it's Azure Blob or big data that is it's perfectly used for. So now the question arises in my mind, and as I said, the topic goes like, which is better in MS automation ecosystem? Is it plugin, custom APIs, or versus Power Automate? Is it versus better to use Azure functions? Because all these are automation tools. In the end, you use them to automate something. You use them to perform some actions around it. But now the questions comes in our mind: which one is better? Which one we should opt for? So this is a comparison from my side. This is what I see. The comparison is like MS Flow. I added some parameters here that which I did find out, and this is my sort of a comparison chart that I created. So if I see here automate tools MS Flow, the execution time for MS Flow is 30 days. Okay, and we have a option available that MS Flow, for example, if I schedule some, and it will wait for 30 days, and after that it can expire. That's the maximum time that I can. Coding complex coding scenarios, it can be, as I said, if this case come of a web service, where we are having some linear information just coming in, definitely find it's easy to handle. But the moment the API have inner objects, sorry, the response have the JSON response have inner objects defined, and so the child tree branches in simple words, then it will become more complex. So invoice is there, then it's by like maybe invoice line item. Okay, so this will be more then complex. This situation will be becoming more difficult to handle if you go with MS Automate. This is my, again, thinking. But why I would say that, then here it comes in, if we can use plugins either, or if we can leverage to use maybe Azure functions or Azure job, depending again what we have in it. Because again, if you go for Azure functions, you have a costing thing. If you go for you must flow or automate, you have a costing to keep in mind. What do you want to take? So it's what I say, it's a sort of a compromise that we have to do, and if we don't know it, we will never be able to make that. We will always think that, okay, it is the solution, this is the solution, and this is always the solution, then it will address all of our. Yes, it will address it, but I think it will not be the justification to the solution that we are planning to provide to the client. So So MS Flow doesn't require Azure assumption. It's available, by default. If you are buying a for example, CRM, customer engagement tenant, or marketing tenant, anything, any apps, you get this available. There's no Azure assumption. Guys, scheduling, yes, as I said, MS Flow have the option available. Plan is basic. The MS Flow comes in basic. If you want the premium connectors, that's called Power Automate. But yeah, you can go into that area as well. Plugins workflow activities are just like what do you call it, they come by default. There is nothing you have to do it. It's just the basic coding understanding that you have to use and work on it, and definitely it can be a good addition. Again, the limitation is execution time. If I want to execute similar the banking solution that I set the example earlier, I cannot use it, unfortunately, because if the billions or millions transactions are there, 2 minutes is just like nothing for it to even the query, creating the package, or for sending it out to the API to the response to get a response or something like that, or creating an SSIS package connection would be enough to complete this whole execution. Complex scenario, yes, it can handle. As I said, plugins doesn't have the option to consume web service API directly, but we can still code that. We can still use our code to consume that. There is no Azure subscription. It's a tenant-based subscription. When you buy the any Microsoft Dynamics customer engagement or field service license, you will always get that. Scheduling, as I said, there is no directional way. There is an indirect way. If you guys want to know it, I can definitely share that. But to share that, you guys can definitely tag me over the Twitter. I will definitely give you the insight how you can do that. You can still do that, but it's not the traditional way to do it. Plan, there is no plan required. There is no execution limit. Now, Azure function, as I said, there is execution time limit. There is, obviously 5 to 10 minutes. Again, we have to see how much time we can use to execute it. And complex scenarios can be handled as per our need, as per our understanding. Whatever we want to do it, we can do it in Azure function. Even Azure functions can be performed in a sequential way as well. That for example, one of my Azure function one is performing the fetch item. I can pass on that to Azure function two. So this is like a tagging thing that it does. So it can handle sequential execution for big info, big changes that we want to do, or big operations we want to perform. To be specific, the operation word is the right way to say it. As your subscription is also required, you have to have as your subscriptions around it. You can schedule it definitely. Plan is again the basic type is consumption plan that you can start off with. This is, but again, you can increase that, because sometimes there is a limit that execution, the basic plans have like 5,000. I'm just giving an example. I don't recall the exact number, but yeah, 5,000, 20,000 records to be executed in particular execution. But after that, it will be execution will be based upon if you want to increase that, you have to increase the plan. Simply, that's the case. Azure Jobs is designed for this specific purpose, that it should be used for big chunk of data and extreme coding experience. You can handle it. As your subscription is again required, scheduling is possible, but plan type is currently there's standard plan type that you can use, because it's designed for the purpose of executing masses. Because, and again, this is more of a, when you go for web jobs or Azure job, you have to keep in mind that this will be used. Again, this is my initial understanding and that I have developed by studying, and I'm still learning in that. And please do let me know if you have some suggestion around it, that Azure Jobs is still best suited for mass. As I said, an example of a banking, that's the way. So this is how I feel the comparison I try to put up in front of you. And the reason of putting it up is something, what I see right now, the culture around us is that everyone feels that the low code no code is the solution to everything. But when I go in a real life scenario, and when I knock a real life scenario, when I go to, because I am dealing with customers on a daily basis, I will say, not discouraging again, but I will say that it cannot address all the answers. That's why when I face this issue, so I want my fellow like community members to know that you have to have the knowledge of other tools that are available. If you're an automate expert, or if you are willing to learn automation, you have to learn others. And that's why I started learning Azure. If you ask me from my experience and background, Azure is different. But why I'm learning it, because just I want to understand how can I handle a solution, what solution can I give to my customer. Because as you know, customer is always the primary thing. He comes to us, and As in our every Ignite, we hear that customer centric issues and problems are the one that we address. So that's pretty much it from my side to be specific to address. If we have any question or answer, please do let me know, and we can definitely discuss that.
Yep. Thank you for the comparison, and truly agree that if you're building a system or architecturing a system, you need to know each and everything about of the Power Platform ecosystem. You need to
Exactly.
know Azure, how it interacts with Azure. What are your low code options? What are your pro code options, right? And
Exactly.
there's so much to it, and this conversation will also be followed up in another in after the next session that's coming
Oh, good.
is a Q&A with for what Fusion Dev is, right? So do stick around for that Fusion Dev thing, because
Done.
we have people, experts, people who have been involved in drafting what Fusion Dev is, and we have community members who want to know more and who would share their experience as well. So do stick around for that. That session is at 2 p.m. UTC time or GMT
Yeah,
time. So do
definitely.
stick around for that. But let's go over some questions. So
Please.
yeah. So this is not more of a question, but Magnus has his opinion on. He's arguing that Cloudflows also gives better tracing mechanism as well, since you
Hmm.
can send values to each action and that output is stored for every session. So you don't need to trace because all the input and output is there.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
what is arguing.
I totally agree with that, Megan. But my main and I do agree that there is mechanism, but as I demonstrated you here in a simple case, what the problem or the challenge there is available in MS flows and all those stuff is that defining it. I know when you say that it's design, when you start off designing, it's pretty simple. Yes, you can do that, you can do that, but when this particular MS flow will enhance, it will be more, it will be handling complexity, and then it will becomes really challenging. I had experience with client when we were trying to design it for order syncing. We use this Power Automate for order syncing of a particular client, and we were getting into a lot of, and that order syncing was from customer engagement to sales, sales, CRM sales, to FinOps. And we were getting into a lot of scenario and cases where we were not seeing logs, we were not seeing, so we had to brought in, the Azure database, and we were starting logging there. So the situation gets complex. But I totally agree. Yes, it is available. We can do that.
Yeah, and again, this goes back to the same discussion. Like, yeah, we Power Automate is like cloud flows are really good. They are strong, but they
Mhm.
have their weaknesses. And where they have the weaknesses, then we have to look for other options,
Other.
because Power Platform is just not Power Platform anymore. It's like big thing where
Ecosystem.
we also
Yeah.
have, yeah, it's a very big ecosystem where we have Azure as well in the play. So you have to pick and choose your tools appropriate for your requirements, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's it. Great. But thanks for your comment.
Yeah.
It's
So the next question is David Momohu. He says, "What about logic apps?" I'm not sure what that question means. So David, let me look you up here and unmute you so you can ask your question. So, yep, David.
Hey, David.
Whenever,
Can you hear
yeah,
me?
I've given you the permission to unmute yourself and ask your question.
I can you hear us, David?
Let's move on. I think so. He's unable
Yeah, I think
to.
Logic app is interchangeably sometimes used. When I started, someone told me that you should use Logic apps for automation. I think maybe he's asking. It was not Logic app; it's Power Automate. Yeah, Logic app is more of a application design. This I'm here talking more about automation. But do let me know, David, if you have the question.
And then Abhi Sinha has a question as well. Is time trigger Azure function will keep on running? And this is, I think, so pertaining to one of the slide that you were presenting, where you said that the comparison. Yeah, exactly. The one slide, the one before, the
Yeah,
comparison slide. Yeah, this one. So I think so. What he's saying is time trigger functions can also be kept running for the
exactly.
execution time.
Exactly, exactly, and the biggest benefit of those function is that what was the gentleman's name?
Abhi Sinha.
Abhisina, is that Azure function, if they are in idle state, the costing doesn't came in. Okay, so it's good thing that, yeah, and we have a limitation of 5 to 10 minutes that we can perform our action. And as I said, there are sequential Azure function that you can design as well to pass on your information from Azure function A to B to perform the particular action, and it can be cascaded ones. In case any one of them failed, it will always roll back. So this is all these all capabilities are available. So definitely, it have an upper edge when it comes to managing the execution. I feel Azure function is the most right now, I feel, is the new go area for me, that have more power. Right now I'm not inclined towards it, but I got to know a lot of freedom. I see a lot of freedom there.
Yeah. Then another question is from Sabat Qureshi.
Yes.
And the question is, oh, actually, it's not a question. I think so it's again a statement.
Please.
Create a trigger entity, schedule a bulk delete job on trigger record, trigger plugins on deleted records, then you have a scheduled job.
Agreed. As I said, this is what I was saying, that this is not a standard practice, by the way. It's doable,
Definitely
and I
not.
did I did that, and this was way back when I was using on premise. I didn't have, I wanted to design a solution in CRM. This is the way that you said, and thank you for highlighting it. Didn't want to say it officially because this is not the right way to do it. The best way to do it, unfortunately, this is a limitation of CRM, that you don't have any schedulers. This delete job schedulers are there, but there are no operation, like you cannot perform daily operations there, which is annoying if you ask me. Why? Because we have a lot of situation where we have to perform daily sync up, so we have to go either to task schedulers, to services, designing maybe SQL SSIS packages, which is, why should we go outside the system? Why the system doesn't give this basic? But I think, Sawad, you pretty explained that this is, and I did use that, so thank you for highlighting it.
Yeah, and I remember myself using it. So we had a client like 4 years back when we were only CRM at that point, and client was like, "Yeah, we want to have low code, no code. We don't want to write any code, no plugins, no web resources,
Uh-huh.
and they wanted to do automation." I was like, "Okay, what do we do?" And this is exactly what we came up with. Like
Exactly.
because we needed scheduled job and we didn't had cloud flows at that time, so
Yeah.
we had to come up with some innovative solution. So this was it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
um
But thanks again for
other
highlighting
than
it, Sawad.
yeah, other than that, I think so it's all good feedback, excellent overview of different system. Thanks for a wonderful session. In between there are some questions and answers going between Alan and the community, but
Perfect. Okay.
okay, yeah, there's one
Please.
more question. How to schedule Azure function?
Well, Azure function can be scheduled. And honestly, uh, I didn't get a, I don't have much expertise right now in that area, but yeah, but as Azure functions can be scheduled using on over your, Azure administrative area. They are available. You can always go there. If I just can pull up the screen real quick. So here, so Azure area, I think I didn't open it as well. Sorry, but it's available there in the Azure admin area. You can go in and configure and your schedule. Whenever you register up for Azure function, you have the options available to schedule it or not. It's pretty simple. I know that it's not complex that you have to do some sort of coding. But obviously, when you go here, you have the Azure function configured. Then you can just go in and just register that.
Yeah, I think so. And Ben Camino actually answered it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to use the con for scheduling the Azure functions or triggering the Azure functions on a timely manner. You have to use the con functions. That's
exactly,
exactly what you want to use.
exactly,
And there are templates in Visual Studio as well that you can use for Azure functions. So if you create a new project, you can create an Azure function project. And if you have an Azure function project and if you start to
mm,
add file, you can add Azure function file, which are based on templates. So it tells you whether you want to use time based, whether you want to use event based, file based. So if you're dropping a file, then the Azure function will kick in. Those kind of templates you get in Visual Studio. So
exactly,
you can even use that, and it gives you those because it's template. It gives you the code, and it also give if it is a time based Azure function, it gives you a con function where you can go and change the uh,
exactly.
yeah.
Make
So makes your life easier.
exactly. So I think thanks for answering that, and it's pretty straightforward. Yes. Any other questions, please?
No, I don't think so. There's any other questions. It was good to look at the comparison again. Thank you for the session, and yeah, that's it.
And
And
just thanks just to end the session. Thanks for everyone, and remember that as Scott Duru, one of a person that I know was available in the session, I attended that as well, and he say one thing that I truly believe, and I would not say that I grow up watching him. At least in my career, I grew up watching his way of designing. And he said, Cameron, low code, pro code unite. I spelled it wrong. It's low code, pro code unite. Okay, sorry. So pro code unite should be the case. So that's what I wanted to give out the message that this is something we should think of. It's not we should think from low code perspective only. We should always think we have to have a highlight of the pro code area as well to design a idealistic system.
yeah, and again, follow-up sessions
Fusion.
is Fusion Dev is at 2 p.m. So if you have any questions about Fusion Dev or low code, pro code, how low code, pro code can unite, where your career is going as a CRM developer, all
Hmm.
those questions that you have, bring those questions in that Q&A sessions and let guys get those questions answered. So
Definitely, definitely.
yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Mustab.
you.
Thank you very much for your session. And then I am going to stop the recording now because
Thank you.
forgot to do that earlier.